Live from Club Italia in Niagara Falls, Your TV Niagara, in cooperation with the Rotary Club of Niagara Falls Sunrise, presents Beyond the Orange Shirt Story with Phyllis Webstad, creator of Orange Shirt Day, a grassroots movement that turned global to commemorate the residential school experience and honor survivors.
Hello, I'm Carrie Zafiro, member of the Rotary Club of Niagara Falls Sunrise and volunteer for Your TV right here in Niagara. I have the absolute pleasure of hosting this very special luncheon, which is an extended Rotary meeting with a very, very special guest. We have all gathered here today to listen to Phyllis Webstad. She is the origin of the Orange Shirt Story. We wouldn't be celebrating and wearing orange shirts across Canada if Phyllis hadn't shared her story. The first time I heard Phyllis's story was in the Your TV studio. My dear friend Brian Kahn, who helped organize this extended trip for Phyllis and her family, came in with a painting he had done. It was part of his dot art, and it was a tribute to the Orange Shirt Story. And I had never heard it before. And he shared with me this story of Phyllis Webstad, who was from British Columbia, and her story as a little girl of what happened to her and her orange shirt. And I was overwhelmed with emotion, and we had a little cry right on the show. And ever since then, I've known about this story, and it helped me learn about this journey that our Indigenous fellow Canadians are on. And so we welcome today Phyllis Webstad to share her story. Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis.
Wait, Chwedap, Phyllis Webstad Rensquest, Stracham Chatlem Slakwan. Hello to everyone. I'm Phyllis Webstad from the Kennew Creek Dog Creek First Nation. I am Shawetmch or Shuswap from the interior of British Columbia. Geography-wise, we are about 7 hours north of Vancouver driving by car. I want to thank Grandmother Renee Hill earlier for the prayer, so Gukshjam, thank you for that, for giving thanks. And I want to acknowledge all of these survivors in the room. We have many that are here. And if you don't mind, survivors, I know you may not be able to see them at home, but if they could just put their hands so you know who they are, survivors that have gone to residential or day school. So thank you. My presentations are usually an hour, so I'm just picking a bit out of my presentation to talk. I have about 15 minutes. I'm third generation Indian residential school survivor, and what that means is 3 generations of my family attended the St. Joseph Indian Residential School out of Williams Lake, about 20 minutes, otherwise known as the Mission. So if you hear me talking about the Mission, that's what it means. Granny was the first generation to attend. All of her 10 children attended. Granny's eldest grandchild, as well as myself. So the third generation to attend the Mission. And unbeknownst to me, my son, who is on the trip with us in Niagara Falls, but he's not here today, is the 4th generation to attend. We found out in 2007 that he was at the last operating residential school in Canada when it closed in Duck Lake, Saskatchewan in 1996. This is a book called Beyond the Orange Shirt Story that came out last year. All of my books are motivated by students, elementary and high school. This is my first book, The Orange Shirt Story. They are also available in French, and this one is available in my language, Shawetmchjin or Shuswap. They all have curriculum. And so this book was motivated by the elementary students. I would be asked to go into the classrooms to talk, and it's hard to talk to them with just me, so I thought if I had pictures, that would be easier. But then when I'd go into the high school and talk to the older ones, all I had was my book, and that wasn't very cool for older ones. So, and I went one year, I say my experience was a walk in the park compared to Mom, my aunts and my uncles and my granny. And I had their permission to tell stories, their stories, it wasn't my story. So I thought if I collected those stories and put them in here, and for the older ones to learn more by, because I couldn't answer a lot of their questions. I said that I was Showetm, and just to explain a bit about that, in our nation there are 17 bands, 12 Southern and 5 Northern. So in the Southern, there is one residential school, the Kamloops Indian Residential School. You've come to know it as to Kamloops, and the world knows them now, to Kamloops 215. And in the north, there's 5 bands, and there is one residential school there called the Mission, or St. Joseph Indian Residential School. There were 5 nations that attended there. There was the Showetmch, or the Shuswap, the Chelkotin, or the Chelkotin, the Deketh, or the Carrier, the Stetlamch, people from Whistler outside of Vancouver, Pemberton, Lillooet, Mount Currie area, as well as the Nukhalk, the people from Bella Coola and Bella Bella area. So, but 3 generations of my family went there. I didn't just get out of bed one day and decide that September 30th would be Orange Shirt Day. There's a story to go along with it, and events and people to credit. We worked on this book, the Orange Shirt Society and myself, and this also has curriculum with it, and it tells the story of the day. In 2013, I was not working, I was unemployed, and I heard that the TRC was coming to Williams Lake, and I invited myself to the meeting. I thought, they're not going to throw me out on my ear. I'm a survivor. And sure enough, they welcomed me, and we had events happening, and we wanted everyone to know not only what was happening, but everybody to know they were welcome to hear the truths of survivors. We're a ranching community, so we wanted the ranchers, the RCMP, the government, political, the schools, everybody to know that they were welcome to come and hear the truths of survivors. And so that's how I was able to tell my story for the first time. I was just looking for a, right here. So I told my orange shirt story, and there was another member of the planning group that was doing some research on the TRC to find out a little bit more about it. And she ran across a video from Murray Sinclair challenging Canadians to keep the conversation happening after the TRC wrapped up. And as we know, that was June. The final report was out in June of 2015. And she had the idea in the bathtub. She thought, well, there's Pink Shirt Day. Why can't we have Orange Shirt Day as a day to keep the conversation going? And originally, the day was just for the mission only. They approached me. I just thought, okay, we'll talk about it once a year, about the mission. We'll wear orange. But this woman, her name is Shannon. Her story is on page, I have to look at that, page 80 in the Orange Shirt Day book. And she called me at home and she said, can I help you make this day go viral? This Orange Shirt Day, it's such a good idea. And I agreed. I was having a hard time, even though my healing journey had started in 1994 when I was 27. I had never really made the connection to my life, to my family, to our history, to residential schools. I knew, like, I had gone, I knew everybody had gone, but it's not something we really talked about or probed, or even like at the dinner table, maybe the funny stories were told, but that was about it. So Shannon is her name. She called me at home, and I told her, sure, she can, I guess, help me make this go viral, not really knowing what it is. And I think I had been on Facebook a little bit by then, but I went down to the TRC event in Vancouver mid-September 2013, and I'm walking along, and somebody handed me a 4x6 card, exactly like you see here. And 4x6 orange, it said Orange Shirt Day, September 30th, picture of a shirt, and it had a Facebook page, and it says, wear an orange shirt to honor the children who survived the Indian residential schools and to remember those that didn't. And I'm looking at this 4x6 card. I'm at the Peony Grounds in Vancouver. There's people everywhere, and I'm walking along, and I get this card, and I'm looking, and I'm reading it, and like, what is going on here? This sounds like me. And it took me a couple of hours to realize what was going on. But Shannon, she's in the stories in here in her own words about some survivors in the Decatur Carrier Territory, and her made 5,000 of these cards, and they were handing them out at the TRC event in Vancouver. So from the very first year, Orange Shirt Day has gone viral. We chose September because that's the time of the year the children were taken from their homes and their families. And when I was in Vancouver at that TRC event, listening to survivors during a break, they were talking, it was September, and one of the elders said September was crying month. And when I heard that, I knew that we had chosen the right month for September, because we had thought of other months, maybe February, maybe June, maybe this, maybe that, but we decided on September for that reason. And she said it was crying month because we at the residential school were crying, and our families at home were crying for us. We chose the 30th because we wanted time to settle in, or the teachers to settle in, to plan an event, and to teach, for the teachers to teach their students. And so that's why we chose the 30th. And when we were talking, we thought that we needed a slogan or a saying or a catchphrase. And when I shared my story, I shared how when I was there for that 1 year, I felt like I did not matter. I could be hungry, sick, lonely, tired, sad, angry, and we weren't tended to. My eldest aunt talks about how she would go and comfort her younger siblings, and I didn't have that. And my cousin Barb, she was 5 years old, and 5 and 6-year-olds should not be comforting each other. So that's the original reason that we chose Every Child Matters. And the survivors are adults and elders today, but when they were there, they were children. They mattered. And also the ones that never came home, we've always known about them. They mattered. The Orange Shirt Society is an organization of reconciliation. The more we talked about our slogan and used it, we realized that it pertained to the past, the present, as well as the future. So no matter what color you are on the medicine wheel, every child matters. And I give you that permission to share that story. As we always get asked, why not Indigenous children matter? Why not this? Why not all lives matter? Why not? If anybody wants to start that, fine, but do not try to change our slogan, Every Child Matters. It is not up for debate. I will share my story. Many times I leave the podium and, I didn't tell my story. So I always remember to read from page 12. And in here I reference the stage. What that is a blue bus that the Dog Creek storekeeper had, because not many people, one, maybe two people on the whole reserve had a vehicle. Not like today, they might have 2 or 3. So that's how we went to town, was by the stage. And the reason we called it the stage, we are down by the Fraser River, the gold rush era, the stage coaches. So I guess when the storekeeper bought the blue bus, people in the reserve thought, just likened it, I guess, a modern day stagecoach, if you will. I turned 6 in July 1973, the age for school. I was not unlike other children. I needed something new to wear for my first day of school. Gran and I went to town on the stage to buy something to go to school in. I chose a bright orange shirt with the shoelace string in front. It was bright and exciting, just like I felt to be going to school for the first time. If I was told what was to come, I don't recall. Even if I was told, it wouldn't have meant anything. All I knew was that I was now old enough to go to school, and that's what I wanted to do. I remember the morning that my cousin and I could wear our new clothes. We were jumping on the bed, excited to be going to school. We took the stage to the mission, about a 2-hour ride. I can remember arriving at the mission. The building was huge, unlike any building I'd ever seen before. I remember lots of crying and the feeling of terror. Pee your pants, terror. When my clothing, including my new orange shirt, was taken, it didn't matter how much I protested or told them I wanted it back. They didn't listen. This was the beginning of that feeling like I didn't matter. We were made to take a shower, more terror. My baths were by the stove at Granny's. I'd never seen water coming out of the walls before. All of us little kids were terrified and crying. We each had our own bed, one in rows of beds. There was a washroom with lots of toilets and sinks. I often get asked if I ever got my shirt back. I do not have a memory of getting my shirt back, but I certainly have a lot now. I have closets, or I shouldn't say, well, maybe a closet full, and I've infringed on my husband's side too as well. So, and I often get asked why I didn't go back, and my cousin did. She was older than me, but the school district opened a one-room schoolhouse about 3 minutes walk from Granny's house, and I was able to go there with the ranchers' kids as well as the storekeepers' kids. And I had, as young children do, they blame themselves. I blamed myself for being there. I thought that I had made the decision myself. But when my grandson turned 6, I looked at him and I thought, there's no way a 6-year-old can make that decision. So what I decided was, and what I've come to learn, is that the reason, well, Granny wouldn't have been sent to jail like she would have been with her children if she didn't send me. So why was I there? Why did she send me if she knew what was going to happen? And I have a saying that life can be understood backward but must be lived forward. And what I've come to understand is that it was the thing to do. She had gone, her 10 children, her oldest grandchild, and myself. So when I turned 6, that's what she naturally did. She got me ready, and away we went. I was just thinking something else. When the picture on the back, I purposely chose this for a reason, and I'm not sure if I told Mom this, but there's a picture of Mom there, and just happy like that. And to me, I'm going to be at some point giving this to the Prime Minister, and I'm going to show him the picture, because to me what this means is the last laugh is on you. We made it. It's like Mom is saying, look at me, we survived, this is our family, we're here. And Granny lived to be 100, and even when she was 96, she said, ever since they got here, they've been trying to kill us. And looking at my family's picture in 2018 when I was on tour, I realized something, and then I'll be finished, that my son and his wife, I have one son, one child, for the first time in 4 generations, children in my family, my grandchildren, are living under the same roof as their mother and their father. Granny, Mom, me, and my son didn't have that. It might not be a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to us, and that is going to change. As Marie Sinclair said, my grandchildren are going to grow up being who they were meant to be. And if any of you come to the drumming on Friday night at the Falls, you can meet my 6-year-old grandson, Adam. And he just goes and goes and goes. So, and he knows what's right and what's wrong and how he should be treated and how he shouldn't be, and he'll tell you. So, Kuksjam, thank you everybody for being here.
And now we are going to open up the floor to some questions. We have a microphone that's being moved into position. And if I could have anybody who would like to ask a question to please head over here, and we'll ask the first question. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to ask a question. And I'm sure maybe you won't be able to answer it because you were there for 1 year, but if maybe one of the other survivors would like to answer a question, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the stage so we can hear it. I'm wondering about the quality of the education. So here you're in this school and you're supposed to be educated. Did they teach anything useful? Would you mind coming up to answer that question for us? Thank you. And your name?
Dawn Hill.
Dawn Hill. So I have Dawn, everybody. So what was the education like, Dawn?
What education? I was at the Mohawk Institute in Brantford from 1957 to 1961. And I came out of there going into foster care and into the public school system. I didn't know how to read. I think the only thing that we did well there was we learned how to write, like physical, cursive writing. We'd practiced that a lot. But I think that the majority of the kids that went to residential school, especially in the past, before me even, didn't get a good education because we weren't being trained to be academics or anything like that, nothing to be more professional. We were being trained to sew, wash the floors, dust, clean. And so I was glad then, when I look back at it now, that I went to foster care from there. I mean, I would have preferred to go home. But I did get an education outside, and I was really, I have to commend the teachers that had to deal with me from grade 5 on, because then they had to teach me how to read, and I did learn, and I felt like by the time I reached grade 8, that I was up with my peers. So they must have done something right. Because I didn't, well, first of all, I didn't know I could go on in high school. I didn't know my rights as a Native person, that I had treaty rights where they said they would educate us and pay for that, and medical and stuff. So I didn't know that until I was like 35. And then I went back to school at Lakehead, and I became a teacher.
Wow.
And
That's incredible.
That was a very fulfilling occupation. I really enjoyed teaching. I especially enjoyed teaching grade 8, which I did most of my teaching. And I feel today that it would be the young people who would move us forward. So no education at the mush hole. That's what the Mohawk Institute was, but definitely afterwards. And I have to commend anybody who moved on in their lives as residential school survivors, who did something, even if they just stayed home and looked after their children. That was commendable.
Do you want to just stay here for a minute in case there's another question?
Oh.
Be careful what you're good at, Donna. Dawn, sorry, Dawn.
That's okay.
Any other questions here? Yes. Yeah, please, right into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm short. So I actually just had a quick question. I'm actually here a part of Meridian Credit Union's BIPOC ERG. I'm actually the chair. So my mother was actually a residential school survivor. My aunts, my uncles, sorry.
Very emotional.
So we're always looking for ways to do our part. And now working in financing. And on this committee, if you have any suggestions for programs we can put together. Sorry.
You know what I'm thinking what we could do is, that is a huge question. And I'm thinking that we could, do you want to answer that? And then maybe we can make some connections after the program as well.
I've done many presentations lately to corporate, and many are doing reconciliation action plans. Picking out, we have the 94 calls to action brochure at our table where we'll be book signing, and they pull out the action plans of that and of the murdered and missing Indigenous women and others and they come up with a plan of what they can do. And it was just on this trip that I realized that I will need to tell them that it needs to be truth and reconciliation action plan, because the truth comes first. The truth is not yet fully told. There is some horrific truths that need to come to light to the public yet. And so a plan to do that. And start with a plan, and you have some wonderful resources here in the room that can come and tell their truths. And yeah, so that needs to happen before reconciliation can happen. And as Marie Sinclair says, it won't happen in probably my lifetime, my grandchildren, maybe my great-grandchildren. And I was actually asked by a corporate individual about a year and a half ago when I was talking to him if the federal government will do a news release when reconciliation has been achieved. And I just, oh my. Are you serious? Okay. And then I started to tell him my story, and then he accused me of being emotional when I started to tell him my truth, and that wouldn't happen. So there's a lot of education to happen in Canada, and it's not all on our shoulders to teach everybody. Everybody has to do their part. So.
Do you have another question, a follow-up question?
No, I was
Okay.
waiting.
Any other questions? I've got one coming up here. Now she's working her way up. I really like what you just said, and I think it's a very important that for the rest of us, that we do open our ears and open our minds and our hearts and are willing to listen and to encourage other people who aren't here, who aren't ready to listen, for us to be patient and encourage them and bring them along that journey. Because I like what you just said. It's not up to you to educate everybody. It's up to the rest of Canada to actually want to learn. Right? You have a question?
Hi, thanks. I guess my question is, I've read the TRC report and the recommendations, the calls to action, the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls reports, and the calls to action. It's sometimes it becomes a bit overwhelming, and for those of us who are not part of the Indigenous community, but who want to help support and be part of that truth and reconciliation, we can buy the T-shirts and wear them every once in a while, and we can do things like, I put ribbons on my mailbox. Orange ribbons live on my mailbox. But what are some of the things that we can do meaningfully in our day-to-day lives that will have an effect, that will then create that opportunity and create that dialogue and create that possibility of opening up for further healing? That's a big question, sorry.
Yeah. The National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, so nctr.ca, has a wonderful website for just that question. And I always get asked that when I present. In my recent response, because Niagara College has a scholarship, and so now I'm saying, assist with Indigenous education. Murray Sinclair says it was education that got us into this. It's going to be education that gets us out. But not only that, elementary schools need help as well. I went to speak at my grandson's school. It's the part of Kamloops that isn't as rich as the ones on the hill, and their equipment didn't work. So what I did is I just grabbed my book and I just started talking to them without any microphone. I had to holler. But education is something that can be invested in, and so that's one of the suggestions that I have. But what you're doing today, opportunities for talking and conversing, that's what Orange Shirt Day was created for, to create conversation. And there's a powwow on Saturday. You're all welcome to come to that. There's drumming at Niagara Falls on Friday night. So it's just keep talking and keep meeting people, and it's not, there's no magic pill that you can take for it to happen.
Anybody else have any questions at this time? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Phyllis to stay right here. We're going to do our official thank you, and I'd like District Governor Lisa Bishop to come up, and I would also like Grandma Renee to please come up. Just stay right there. They didn't know we were going to do this to them, but we wanted to give, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Niagara Falls Sunrise, we wanted to present to you a special gift that we hope would help you to remember your trip to Niagara. So for each of you, we have a piece of art. It's made by a local artist, Rossi glass. It's all wrapped up nice. It's hand-blown glass in the shape of Niagara Falls. So that you will, and it's a beautiful blue. And and we just wanted you to have something that in the future you will look at this and you will say, that's from when I went to Niagara Falls. So on behalf of each and every one of us here, we want to give you a very warm thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for helping us understand a little more. Anything that we can do to help in the healing, that's what we want to do. And to our audience at home, thank you for watching. Thank you, Kojiko Your TV, for sharing this very important message. Thank you.